And we are live right here on the True Mets Talk channel. We're doing a little bit of a day after recap. We do apologize about postponing the post game yesterday. It was a late start time. And you know what? The Mets got the victory. That's all that matters. I got my guy Zach here in the building talking Mets versus Royals game one, 8-3 victory. We're going to talk about just the game in general, the box score, the pitching, everything. Kodai Senga, Ghost is back. And you know what? Steve Cohen took to Twitter right after the game and he was like, there seems to be less complaining. I think he was adding a couple of people, and those people probably were me. I was mixed in that in that
A
kind
lot of
of
Mets fans are
that
mixed in
that
that.
realm after the doubleheader, man. Zach, how you doing?
Good, Chris. Good. It's nice to get a win in that fashion. Obviously, don't want to be hanging on for dear life for the first 7 innings. Just waiting for the Mets to do something. Cardiologist dialed and ready to go because the Mets just can't seem to make anything easy. At least not for the past month. But good to get a win. Good to see one particular bat, Mark Vientos, with an absolutely massive hit. And, he had a couple strikeouts, but after that, after he slammed his bat down and broke it, he seemed to lock in and he looked a lot better, a lot more comfortable at the plate, too. So hopefully this is a trend that will continue and we can carry into the All-Star break and really hit the ground running once we come back next Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of broken bats for the New York Mets lineup. I mean, Pete Alonso smashed his bat in half over his knee out of frustration. It wasn't a good game for Pete Alonso as well. Again, we're going to get into the X's and O's. We got the box score here on the next slide. But as always, we appreciate you all being here on this lovely Saturday. I do understand it is noon on a Saturday. People are probably out and about. But for those of you all who are here tuning into this day after recap, I definitely appreciate it. Please do smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff, and drop the live chat comments because, again, like complete 180 in terms of the tone of Mets fans, myself included, over on social media. And Steve Cohen kind of pointing that out with what he stated. And I'm like, Steve, listen, I got to take a step back. And I'm like, Steve, this team just dropped a doubleheader in brutal fashion to the Baltimore Orioles after they looked like they didn't want to be there. Of course, fans are going to be pissed off. And of course, there's going to be less complaining after a victory. So I'm really hoping that, like you said, like you just said, that this is a way to finish out this first half of the season, quote unquote, first half of the season on a high note with the series win. We'll see if we're able to get that and secure that today, and just carry that over after the All-Star break. Because I do think that, as we saw yesterday, getting the rotation pieces back, especially Kodai Senga, who has been the ace, the undoubted ace when healthy this season, is such a step in the right direction. Of course, the trade deadline's coming up. I've posted a few videos on my channel talking about potential trade targets, both for the bullpen and in the starting pitching market. I'll continue to release videos about trade targets and, kind of naming some underrated guys that could help this Mets team around the league with teams that might be selling. So definitely appreciate it. Salute to Brad, Steven, Oliver in the chat. Always appreciated. And I know we have some comments left over here. El Good spamming the W's last night. Again, this is a carryover stream from the post game yesterday. So you got to spam the W's for a Mets victory. All right, let's get into the box score here.
Do it.
As I toss up this next slide. This was the outlook of what transpired in Kansas
Yeah.
City yesterday after basically an hour rain delay. It seems like there's been a lot of delays recently with the weather, but that's okay. Kodai Senga, we got to start this stream and we got to start this day after recap talking about Kodai Senga. Clearly, he was on a restrictions limit, right? They weren't going to let him go 70, 80 pitches in his first outing back, but he looked good, Zach. 67 pitches. He did, work around some jams there, especially I think in the early innings when he had second and third. I believe nobody out, but he got the strikeout. He just was working out there. And I love what he said in the post game. He's just like, what I thought to myself when I had runners on early on in the game? It just wasn't a good look for me to come back in my first start to do that. So I'm happy that he was able to strand runners, and that's really been his thing all season long. And it's helped contribute to the 1.39 ERA that he's pitching to, which is absolutely phenomenal. But the traffic teams are able to get traffic on the bases against Kodai Senga. That's nothing new, but they're not really able to score at a high clip off of him. And we saw exactly why yesterday with a lot of his pitches, including the ghost fork working. 4 hits given up across 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, and 2 walks. No earned runs for Kodai Senga. What did you make of his first start back from the IL?
It was a good first outing back. I mean, it's what the Mets needed because before Kodai Senga went down, the Mets were 42-21. There were 21 games above 500, and since then they've been 8-18, something along those lines. But they've been bad since or 8-17. They've been bad since Kodai Senga got injured. So he has proven to be the heart of this team. You know, let's basically pushed them forward because it just kind of ran through Kodai Senga. And to get him back just in any fashion was great. But then to go out there and perform like that was a whole nother thing because you never know. Just coming off an injury like this, these guys get a bit skittish, especially someone like Senga who's a perfectionist. They might be a little bit more cautious with how they're throwing and the way they're landing and pushing off these hamstrings. So it was good to see him go out there, pitch a solid outing, and the thing I pick up most out of it was that 4th inning. That's when he looked his best. He was in complete control in that 4th inning. And if that was, Kodai Senga at 100%, no restrictions, you could have seen him carry that into, a 5th, 6th, and maybe even touching a 7th inning if he continued on like that. So if this is the Kodai Senga we're going to get when he's on no restrictions, I mean, it's what the Mets need because – even though Kodai Senga was so great before he got injured, he wasn't able to go deep. And that was the one problem with his game. And if he can figure out a way to limit the non-competitive pitches and be able to, have an efficient pitch count, that is something the Mets basically haven't had all season, maybe outside of David Peterson.
Yeah, and we saw that last outing from David Peterson, and we know how that game turned out. It was not pretty because the bullpen, specifically Ryan Stanek, came in, and that was game one of the doubleheader against the Orioles. But I definitely agree with you. I mean, providing length. I know that he wasn't able to do it because of the restrictions this outing, but I do agree. Like, I think that the most confidence that I have in this rotation right now from guys that are able to potentially go deep into ball games is Kodai Senga. He's done it on a handful of occasions, but not as much before, pre-injury as we would like, but definitely David Peterson as well. I mean, Clay Holmes, for me, there's no confidence level that he can get into the 6th and 7th inning and not fall apart. He's a 5, maybe 4 2/3, 5 innings pitcher. And then he kind of just fizzles out. And I think that's the one problem that Mets fans have with Clay Holmes being in this rotation as well. And there's some initial discussions if we get the right guys back and if we make the right moves at the deadline, potentially putting Clay Holmes back into the bullpen for the second half. Although I do think it's been a successful first half for Clay Holmes all in
Oh,
all,
100%.
anyways, with the statistics, overall, and that's something to build off of. But it's just what is best for the team. But of course, you can't make that corresponding move without getting guys back healthy and without making a move at the deadline for a starting pitcher. So really good stuff to see. And the bullpen came in and was really good with the exception of Huascar Brazaban giving up the home run to Bobby Witt Jr., which at that time in this game put the Royals ahead 3-1 in the later stages of the ball game. But Alex Carrillo as well. Alex Carrillo
He was
coming in
awesome.
for 2 innings, and he gave up 1 earned run. But he
Probably
is
shouldn't have.
like exactly. But he looks good, and he has looked good. I think that was his second or third outing of this season.
Second outing.
Second, right? Second outing. Good to get, and the Mets knew, and Mendoza knew that they were going to need a guy to step up and give them 2 innings at the very minimum behind Kodai Senga, given that restrictions limit, maybe even 3. And so that is a really good job to keep the team in the ball game and keep things competitive and hand it off to the next guy. So tip of the cap to Alex Carrillo. This has been a bullpen, especially with the long relief category that has just been going up and down. And they just DFA'd Garcia after having a good outing in that doubleheader in Baltimore. A lot of people are scratching their heads. We've seen Justin Hageman. Davinsky closed out the ball game with the cushioned lead last night. I mean, it's just been just constant roster movement, which I think has annoyed a lot of Mets fans, including myself. And we want to just build that consistency back. But it's hard to do given the plethora of injuries that the Mets bullpen has sustained already this season. So I wanted to make sure to give a very well deserved tip of the cap to Alex Carrillo. Same thing to Reed Garrett and Chris Davinsky as well, coming in and pitching scoreless innings in the back end of that game in the eighth and ninth inning. So the bullpen did their jobs. Huascar Brazaban has been really good for this team all season long. You know, he gave up 2 earned runs with a home run. Understandable. But the offense, Zach, the offense. It was looking like it was going to be another stinker from this lineup, and everybody was losing their minds. I mean, everybody was losing their minds until that, those last couple of innings when the Mets finally decided to wake up. And by finally deciding to wake up, I'm talking about one guy in particular that has been lacking and slumping all season long. And by the way, Jesse Winker, as of before yesterday's game, Andy Martino put the tweet out there, and I made a little bit of a TikTok video talking about my displeasure of the move to bring Jared Young back up onto this team, because I'm like, the one thing that I don't want to see happen, right? If Jared Young is coming up because he's going to be a solidified bench bat, okay, fine. I'd rather still give that spot to a young guy like Drew Gilbert, who's 24, going on 25 years old, maybe see what he's got. He can play center field. Okay, though. But if you're going to bring Jared Young up here, because this organization loves their veteran bats, right? They love the veteran presence. He cannot be taking away the bulk at bats from Mark Vientos. I don't care if it's a lefty. I don't care if it's a righty on the mound. You give Vientos this opportunity, especially before the All-Star break, where it looked like when Jesse Winker went down in Baltimore, Mark Vientos came in immediately and started putting good swings on the bat or on the ball. And that's something where I was listening to Anthony Recker because I was blacked out of the games in Baltimore, unfortunately. So I was listening to the radio, and that's something where that's like maybe a silver lining type of thing to happen. It's very unfortunate. Jesse Winker, short-lived after coming off the IL, going back onto the IL, pulling something in his back, tweaking something in his back. But that's something that can be a silver lining for the Mets in terms of getting Mark Vientos going, because we're talking about this Fab Four that Steve Cohen is alluding to, right, with the top of the lineup. But we need this to be a Fab Five. This was meant to be a Fab Five. Mark Vientos needs to get going. And I think that yesterday, hopefully, I think we're all hoping, could get him going. I mean, huge clutch hit, Zach.
Yeah, this offense was built around him being some version, maybe even just straight up replicating his performances from last year. And he was there to be a protection for either Nimmo or Alonso, whomever he was batting behind, and he just has not been able to do that. We've seen McNeil come back, and he has been a productive bat at the bottom of the lineup with essentially nothing around him. We've seen Brett Beatty start to turn a corner and become, a solid hitter, and a solid hitter with runners in scoring position. Mauricio showing flashes of extreme potential, and Vientos has just kind of been dead in the water all season. And even if he's not exactly what he was last year, if there's some version of the last year in him, and that shows, it makes David Stern's job so much easier at this deadline, because we're not talking about him having to go out there and get the best of the best hitter while also shopping at the top of the market for bullpen and starting pitching help. Now we're able to talk, all right, we can get a good complementary bat that can fill a slot into center field or DH. It's less restrictive, and Vientos could be your everyday DH, your third baseman, whatever it may be. And he's able to provide protection for Alonso, because outside of the first, the first month, and then stretches here and there in May and June where he's been incredible, he has had no protection and essentially no one behind him to pick up the slack. When that top four is not getting anything going. So if he can be that and be that bridge to the bottom of the order that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks now, it'll be massive. And he has looked better as of late, and I don't want to count my eggs before they hatch, but I hope this is at least something, some form of last year rearing its head.
Let me ask you, because I mean, this is a unusual stream that we're doing in terms of just
Yeah.
doing a day after recap, kind of a hybrid bridge to the state of the Mets. We do
Hmm.
have, by the way, for those of you all who are in this chat right now, we are doing a pregame as well at 2:30. Rob's going to join the pregame as well. We're doing that. So we're going to be previewing game 2 of Mets versus Royals. So 2:30 p.m. Come back to the channel. We're just recapping right now on this stream last night's game. But let's talk a little bit about like the okay, let me backtrack here.
Yeah.
This Vientos getting going, let's just say he does get it going, like we all hope and like we all expected him to follow up with a great performance, a great season after his rookie campaign last season, his first full season, right? This top 6 I can live with all day, every day. All day, every day. Because McNeil, I know he took the 0 for with 2 strikeouts, but McNeil, ever since coming off the IL, also has been really good. He's been swinging a very competent bat, and he's made a lot of adjustments too in terms of not trying to be that slap hitter and being more of a gap to gap hitter. And it's paid a lot of dividends for him, really. I've been really
Over an
impressed.
800 OPS.
Over an 800 OPS. I mean, he's putting balls in the gaps. He's putting balls over the fence. He's not going to hit you 20 plus home runs. We all know that, but he's hitting the ball with authority rather than just trying to get on base via the slap hit. And I think that adjustment has served him very well. If Vientos is able to turn it around, this is the top 6 that we all envisioned. But there are buts because the trade deadline is coming up and the Mets are going to have to find a way to get creative to get this offense going. And perhaps getting the offense going means adding on to it. If you add another
Oh yeah.
competent, viable bat to lengthen this lineup, that would be amazing. I know one guy that you like a lot is Suarez, right? From the Diamondbacks. You've
Love
been talking
Suarez.
about you've been talking about him. He's got 28 home runs. He's on the verge of 30 home runs plus.
I
I
think
mean,
he's
he's
like
on
the.
track to hit 40,
I
this
think
season.
yeah.
But the problem is with that, like, let's just talk about that scenario. And I know that, I think Rob's gonna probably post a video at some point about the Diamondbacks and how they're kind of falling off and, potentially going to get Suarez. I'm probably gonna do so as well. I've been posting videos for a little bit more of like lesser trades for
Mhm.
bullpen pieces. But when the time comes to assess the market and who's actually going to be selling, of course, we have to talk about a blockbuster trade that the
Of
Mets
course.
probably have to make at this deadline to move the needle, I would say. But with getting a guy like Suarez or any other big bat that's going to present itself on the market, right? Let's just say Suarez, for example, you're going to need to give up, right? A good bit, even though he's on an expiring deal, if I'm not mistaken,
Mauricio
correct?
straight up, I'd say, would get that
You
done.
think Mauricio? I was going to ask you what you would do between, I guess, Mauricio, but I was under the impression, and I still have been, I don't think that yesterday changes it. Do you think that there's any world, and Rob's also on board with his notion, but do you think that there's any world that the Mets are prepared to trade Vientos at this deadline? Or do you think that that is off the table?
I think they have to be. I mean, you have so many prospects that can play third, second, and those two positions in particular between Beatty, Mauricio, Acuna, and Vientos, that you need to be open to moving any one of them. And if you're calling the Diamondbacks and Vientos is the name they bring up, you say, okay, here you go, take him. Eugenio Suarez makes this the best lineup in baseball, bar none, bar none, because him and Alonso are, I think, top 5 in average with runners in scoring position. To have that, 1 through 5 would be incredible. I think where you get caught up into it is how many people are gonna be calling for Suarez. How long are the Diamondbacks gonna hold out? Because that is a loaded NL West, but they are there. They're right there, and they can make a push. So the later they hold out, the better chances the return is less. If they decide to start selling earlier, they can create a bit of a bidding war. So it depends. I think going into this deadline, every team is going to be asking for Ronnie Mauricio, and I think the Mets would be foolish to just wave the white flag and be like, we're not going to trade him. They need to be willing to move him because even though how talented he looks and how much better he's looked at the plate, how much more patient. I know he took the over last night. He had 2 walks. His at bats are looking much, much better. you have to be ready to move that piece because
Yeah.
in all seriousness, I mean, you have guys that are behind him that are ready to come up and also play those positions. So that there's an abundance of talent there that could see play and it can be impactful in the next few years, as well as guys that you can sign to bridge to bridge that gap. So I think just off the top of my head, I think a hypothetical deal for the Diamondbacks would probably be something like Mauricio and maybe Ronald Hernandez, a first base slash I guess he was a catcher at first, but I don't think he plays catcher anymore. I think that would get it done because the Diamondbacks have an awful farm system. Their farm system is like rumbling. I think they're ranked 22nd coming into the season. I think it's gotten worse, especially with their number 2 pick from a few years ago being injured, Andrew Jones' son. So, or not injured, just not performing. So this is a team that is going to be looking for not only MLB ready talent to stay competitive, but also probably some deeper prospects to bolster up that farm system. So I think they're going to be asking for an array of things.
This is where the Mets are going to be at a crossroads, I think, with this this is hypothetical, everyone. I would like to caveat this is all hypothetical, right? There's going to be a lot of teams calling for Eugenio Suarez. The Yankees are going to be one of them for sure, like without a doubt in my mind. This is where the Mets are going to be at a crossroads because I do think that teams, whether it's the Diamondbacks or anybody else that has a bat to offer the Mets, right, to make this lineup stronger than it already is. And right now, I mean, it just hasn't been performing like the strength of their potential, right? Of their top potential. They have not hit that stride just yet, which is crazy because it's middle July and we're still waiting for that. But this is where the Mets are going to be. They're going to have a tough decision because I do think that Mauricio is by far the player that teams will be asking for the most, even over a guy like Mark Vientos, given the power potential, because Mauricio can play third base. He's proven that he can play third base and at a pretty decently high level, right? And so if that's the outlook for the Mets, you are risking a lot because listen, I mean, Eugenio Suarez can play third base. He doesn't really have a great glove, I will say. That's definitely a defensive drop off, but the offensive production that you get by sticking him at third base and just keeping Vientos in the scenario where Mauricio is, going to Arizona would make this lineup that much stronger. And I think you have to make that sacrifice. And you'll still have Brett Beatty, but again, like I don't know if Brett Beatty is going to be an everyday ball player for this team in the second half, right? I don't like Mauricio probably will not be if he sticks around. It's going to be another platoon if they decide to go that route. But I do think that it's going to be a very tough decision surrounding Ronnie Mauricio. And I do think that Ronnie Mauricio is going to just draw a lot more interest given the defensive capabilities. And let's not act like his bat doesn't have upside. He hasn't really shown the power that Vientos has, at the plate in the major leagues thus far. But he has that power potential. Like he can be a 20-plus home run guy if he's able to do something like last night, even given the offer, but is able to have more patience and is more selective and gets his pitch to drive. And we haven't really seen that at a high clip just yet, although he's putting together a lot better at bats. So that's where the Mets going to be at a crossroads, I think, when that decision comes. Do I think, I'm just going to put this out there, do I think that Eugenio Suarez is going to be a Met this trade deadline? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know. I just don't have that feeling.
I don't know because I mean it's such a weird situation because everyone's talking about center field, center field, center field, center field. Why else would we have Jeff McNeil taking reps in center field in the minor leagues? I get, oh, he's just going to be there to give Tyrone Taylor spells. Tyrone Taylor, who? I mean, he's been non-existent for this team for all season. For me, he plays no part. If we're not moving Jeff McNeil to center field to protect Tyrone Taylor's feelings or to make sure he still has a spot, pack it up right now and call it a season. Just forfeit the rest of the games because you're an unserious team. So I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I think this team is very serious. And if the Mets want to make a true improvement, they move McNeil to center field full time. Yes, it's going to be a downgrade over Tyrone Taylor, but Tyrone Taylor's still there for late inning defensive replacement. He is speedy off the bench and pinch runner, in a case where you need a pinch runner. And Eugenio Suarez is the best bat on the market because he is going to be on the market. And I will tell you this right now. If the Mets were to offer Ronnie Mauricio for Eugenio Suarez, I don't think a single team could match that in the league. And here's why. This is a team that still wants to at least attempt to make the playoffs this year and definitely going forward. Mauricio gives them that ability. He will slot right into third base and play every day for them. That's a team that's not giving up. They're just recouping some sort of value from this player that on an expiring deal who will not be there next year, or most likely not there next year.
Retooling.
While still, huh?
They're retooling is what basically.
Yeah, exactly. They're retooling within season. They're able to still compete this year, make a push, and go after it next year. It's like the Yankees in 2016 when they traded both Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman, and they were right back in the postseason the next year. So that's a team that has a few pieces they can do that with. You know, Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, and obviously Eugenio Suarez. So that's going to be a good team to target for a few pieces. And then after that, there's just not many bats out there. Obviously, there's going to be teams coming from the woodworks, or at least not many bats out there that fit the Mets. I mean, there's guys like Ryan O'Hearn from the Orioles, but the Mets are so left-handed heavy. It's like I almost don't even want to make that. So they need to. They're going to need to get creative. Is what's going to happen, because it's not a deadline that you normally see where there's an abundance of players available.
So, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's like when you're comparing the position groups of like the bullpen starting pitchers or like impactful bats that you can have at this deadline, I think the bats rank dead last. I think it goes bullpen. There's going to be plenty. I mean, plenty. And there always is, right? Then it's going to be a starting pitching market. There's going to be mid-level starters, but it's going to be interesting, especially with what a couple of teams do with their, I guess, frontline guys. Who's that?
Joe Ryan.
Joe Ryan, yeah, that's what.
He would be the number one available if he becomes available.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting about that too, about the starting pitching market, is that Edward Cabrera also, there was a report that the Mets were interested in him. He just left the game yesterday and he got hurt. So that changes a lot. A lot of stuff happening, man. A lot of stuff happening, and it's only July 12th. So if you can imagine like all the uncertainty right now, I mean, wait maybe a week from now, right after that all-star break, we're going to get a lot more answers, and we're just going to be hitting the ground running with all these reports coming out from these media members. So you know what, I wanted to dip into a little bit of that trade discussion for the Mets. I'm going to make another bullpen trade target video, probably releasing tomorrow, so make sure to stay tuned to that, because I think that there's some underrated bullpen pieces that not many people are talking about. Everyone's talking about Aroldis Chapman. Everyone's talking about,
David Bednar
is 1A, like, right. And I just don't think that the Red Sox are going to trade him to begin with, because they're literally sitting on the playoff spot right now. But there's also just other guys too that can make just as much of an impact in the back end of this bullpen alongside Edwin Diaz that you wouldn't have to give up as much for, because the Red Sox are going to be asking for an arm and leg. So you know what?
Like that too. I mean, the whole DV thing, the Mets aren't going to trade for him. It's like they're a team that's very anti that. I mean, as any team should be, but the Mets specifically. So
exactly.
Why don't you give us a little preview though into who you're going to be talking about in your video?
How would I do this? He's in the NL Central. Former Met, by the way. Former Met in the NL Central.
NL Central.
Former Met and Yankee in the NL Central, and now he's in the NL Central. Yeah. I don't think many people will get who I'm talking about. I mean, maybe, but he wasn't a Met for long. I think it was a season, maybe, if that. Anyways, that's releasing tomorrow. His career is just complete 180, but again, I'll talk about that in the video. I'll release that tomorrow. So, getting back into this game. Francisco Lindor providing some much needed insurance. In that last inning. 3-run home run. Just need to get this top of the order going. It was good to see the back-to-back home runs, Lindor and Soto. Soto hits number 22 of the season. And again, like that offensive outburst, 7 runs in the last 2 innings is what we want to see, but we would preferably want to see it in the second, third, and fourth inning earlier in the game. So, I mean, it's it's just one of those things where, Zach, like I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, we know what this offense is very much capable of. We just haven't seen it on a consistent basis as of yet, and we're just waiting for it. So, um, but I do like this lineup. Tell me this, what do you make of the switch? Because I haven't really discussed it on the channel, any of the streams that I've done thus far, but Nimmo and Lindor. Last year's Lindor and Nimmo, switching from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, whatever. Um, and this season, it's Nimmo and Lindor switching. Nimmo going back to the leadoff, Lindor hitting in the 2 hole. What do you like? What is like the thought process in your mind of what you think Mendoza could be thinking? Because it just seems like such a minuscule change, but it makes all the difference in the world, especially for a guy like Brandon Nimmo. Way back when Brandon Nimmo got dropped to the 3 hole, I wanted that to happen. I wanted that to happen very badly because we were seeing the increase in power surge from Brandon Nimmo.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did think that he could be a high RBI guy on this team. And he just never looked comfortable in the 3 or 4 hole as much as he does in the 2 hole or the leadoff spot. I'm very happy that this change was implemented. And I think that this could also, it has sparked this lineup a little bit, but I do think that the bottom of the order also has to pick up some weight too to help out the guys at the top before things truly hit the peak, hit its peak. But what do you make of that change? Like, what could have possibly been going on in the mind of Mendoza to try that this season?
I think just trying to get Nimmo in a more comfortable position because he's someone that likes to work counts. And when you're in the middle of the order, while you still can work your count, you're expected to be the run producer. Whereas in the at the 1 or the 2 hole, he can be more of a passive run producer. He can still work his walks and get on base for the big boppers, but also can attack pitches that he likes early in counts, or even when he's in a positive count, and be able to drive that ball into the gaps or even over the wall. So that I think that was the whole mindset of getting Nimmo further up in the order, just playing more into his strengths, his previous strengths, his previous way of taking at bats, and then while also allowing him to grow and still implement some of his new strategies he's developed at the plate to drive the ball further and for home runs. And then Lindor just moving him out of the leadoff spot, I think that had a lot to do with the broken toe. I mean, I think he just wasn't comfortable up there. He didn't have the burst, he didn't have the speed, he didn't have the ability to steal bases. And he was just struggling, and it was basically just dropping him and getting a little bit more protection for him with Soto behind him as opposed to Nimmo. So, and just probably getting someone that's been red hot in Nimmo since, I guess, the middle of June now, that more bats a game and leading off games. And I think his OPS now is over 800, if I'm not mistaken. So this is someone who has crawled out of the depths of, I think, like the high 600s at his worst point, and now is proven to be one of the best hitters on this team. Like we knew he could be. Like we saw a lot last year. A lot of the advanced metrics were great. He just wasn't. It wasn't showing up on paper. Now it is. It finally is, and it's better than we could have ever imagined. And then even into the bottom of the lineup, I mean, they need to get Taylor out of it. They need to. I mean, you can't have two dead spots. I know Torrens and Taylor both had hits and were on base last night, but if you're gonna have any dead spots in your lineup, have it be your catcher. You can't have two positions be a dead spot. And I put out a tweet yesterday how Beatty has been really good over the past 15 games and has been our second best hitter with runners in scoring position with a 286 average, or I think that's what it is. So he needs to be in that lineup every day, and we need to figure out what we have with him because he's getting better and better with the bat, and we all see it with the glove. So it's time to stop sheltering these young kids and bringing them in and out of the lineup, and it's time to stop rewarding these veterans for terrible play. We need a catcher, so we're going to deal with what we got. But Tyrone Taylor doesn't need to be in there. Jeff McNeil was playing center field and has played a solid center field now since he's come back. So it's time to say, all right, Taylor, enough of this. You're going to sit on the bench and you're going to get your few at bats a week. And if you start to produce, maybe you'll see more consistent time. If not, the kids are showing something at least more than what Taylor and Torrens are. So it's it's time to really shake things up, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, I agree. And so it sounds like from your perspective, you would rather see McNeil to get Beatty's bat in the lineup every day up until the trade deadline. You'd rather see McNeil play center field consistently and get Beatty in at second base and keep
Yeah,
Mauricio at third base, right?
100%.
I think that's probably the best combination too. I think I'd have to agree with that. I
That's
think
the
I'd have to
best
agree with that.
infield defense we have. I think Beatty's a better glove at second base than McNeil, and Mauricio's most comfortable position is third base. And McNeil plays a good enough center field where I don't think I'm worried about too many runs being scored because of hit misplays. I'm more concerned about his inabilities to track down balls like Tyrone can, because he can make plays out of nothing. He can make some amazing plays out there in center field. Whereas McNeil's does not have the range. He does not have the arm, and so he's going to miss the plays that Tyrone would have. And that's not a knock on McNeil. That just shows how good Tyrone is. And Jeff McNeil will make all the routine plays, and he'll make some nice plays out there, but he won't make some unbelievable plays that almost no other center fielder can. So, at this point in time, the Mets problems are all stem from their offense. Obviously we've had some pitching woes in the last month since Senga went down, but that's to be expected when you're injured in droves. It wasn't like an injury here, an injury there, and an injury there, and guys are coming back. Filling the gaps. No, it's we had Minter and Danny Young go down at the beginning of May. Then we have Senga, Tyler McGill, and Griffin Cannon go down in the middle of June, and Minaya and Montas still aren't back. And then even after Montas gets back, I know, this guy goes down. Blackburn goes down. Who else goes down? Daniel Nunez, Jose Buto. It's just, it was like never ending. Like, I know some of these guys are not big producers for the Mets, but when you're in that heavily injured, there's going to be a drop off in production. But the lineup never picked them up, and it's time to just get the best bats in this lineup. And let them figure it out on the field defensively, because I would much rather be able to put up 5 runs a game on average than maybe save 1 or 2 with a better defender out there.
Yeah, I will say first and foremost, I definitely do respect the move from Jeff McNeil and playing a very competent center field. No, he's no Tyrone Taylor defensively. Not many people around this league are, right? And we're not even talking about Jose Siri as well, who is starting baseball activities from what I heard as of last. I don't really know what he's going to provide. I don't know what his role is going to be on the team moving forward as well. You have 2 defensive-minded center fielders at that point, and then you'll have McNeil. And I don't know. I think that I agree. To get the best possible lineup combination, I would sacrifice a little bit on the defensive side, up the middle and center field. McNeil is more than capable, and he's shown that he's more than capable of playing a respectable center field. So if that means playing Beatty more to see, because the Mets have to see what these guys have. Like, they need to get an answer on Beatty, right? They need to get the answer on Mauricio if these are the guys that teams are going to be calling for, right? Especially Mauricio. So it only makes sense. And that's just part of, I know no one wants to hear it, but that's part of seeing how things go and still having question marks coming into the season with your young guys that are not quite prospects anymore, but not quite ready to be labeled as everyday, I guess, starters and just being thrown into platoon role. That's kind of what you have to do if you're the president of baseball operations, and play the first half by ear and then make the necessary and tough decisions come the trade deadline in the second half. So 100% agree with that. And I was going to say something about your other point too. Now I'm just completely forgetting. I lost track because I'm looking at the comments here. And I definitely appreciate everyone being here with us. Again, please do smash those thumbs up buttons. It makes this stream a lot more enjoyable. If you guys commented, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, I definitely appreciate it. I'm about like 8 subscribers away from 2,400 on the
Let's
channel. I
get him
definitely
there.
appreciate that. Get it done. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone's support. You all know that. I enjoy reading all you guys' comments. But let's see what else we got here. What else we got? What happened in
One
yesterday's
thing I
game?
want to bring up, I find it. I know you and Rob were briefly talking about it after the dreadful doubleheader, the
Yeah.
Acuna being called up, and kind of a manipulation there to save an option. And it made sense. Travis Jankowski really didn't offer much for this team, but essentially Acuna is here to do the same thing. I find it interesting that they did that right before the deadline. Let's save an option for this guy, someone who was playing well down in AAA. I mean, the OPS wasn't there, but he was hitting the ball pretty well and having some good at bats. So I think that's a telling sign of someone that the Mets are looking to deal. Someone that's been called on, I think was called on last offseason, or there were calls about him last offseason. So I guess we'll see on that front going forward, because I don't suspect him to see much starts up here.
Yeah. I don't think that there's really, I mean, much room for Acuna to thrive and get bulk playing time at this point. He's a talented player. I think his approach needs to change 180 at the plate, because he's got talent and he has the ability to make an impact for the Mets or any other team. But with the way that he's approaching, and not utilizing his skill set, which his biggest strength is his speed, and he's just not even giving himself a chance to get on base with expanding the zone. And he doesn't have the power that Mauricio does. So when Mauricio does it, like if he gets a hold of one, he might be able to get away with it. But Acuna, I mean, it's going to be a fly ball, and it's going to be it's just going to be out. So we've seen that plenty of times. At this point, I do think that his role on this team is basically just being that late game replacement, maybe a spot start here and there for a doubleheader like we saw in Baltimore, given the circumstances, but not really much else. And I think that's the unfortunate scenario. And I do think that saving that option could be indicative of something else too. Like you said, Zach, like, again, I don't think that at this point with what he's shown, I don't think he would be a main piece in a trade for like a big name bat or a big name starter. I think that's going to be more so like Ronnie Mauricio, like you talked about, and like we talked about a couple minutes ago. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of Luis Angel Acuna and what the Mets could potentially move him for. I just don't know. And it's a shame because listen, I was Acuna's biggest defender this offseason. I was like, give this guy a shot. He's ready. And he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. He was ready for about a week, maybe a week and a half, a good stretch, and then he kind of just, stopped. And
I
he went
wanted them
back
to
to
trade him while the value was
the
at its
value was
highest.
there. Yeah.
I never saw the appeal with Acuna. I think he's going to be a fine, extra, middle infielder, maybe a backup outfielder. When you don't have the discipline to be able to work your walks or at least work counts and just put the ball in play, you're not going to succeed as a fast, as one of these speedsters without much power. And if you're not going to, gear your hit tool towards your true assets, offensively, it's not going to work for you. So, and he has not shown the ability to change his approach, which is a shame. But I think there's going to be a team out there that sees some value in him, and that's going to be calling for him, because very seldom do you see many, young 20-year-old kids, ready to make an impact at the major league level. And there's certain teams out there that will find that valuable in the ability to let them grow here and, without the pressure of being a World Series contending team. So
Yeah.
I think this is someone that could potentially grow past what I think of him, and, many other Mets fans, even maybe what you have thought of him in a situation where there's less pressure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Lane is bringing up in the chat too, Brandon Sproat. And speaking of Brandon Sproat, I think before we head into the next slide here, we got to have a conversation here about the second half of the pitching rotation. Do you think any of these prospects get a chance in the second half?
I
Nolan
will
McLean
tell
is
you this much: Nolan McLean does not see a pitch at the major league level for this year, unless there's some major injuries. And I I I know where you sit with Nolan McLean. I am in the opposite camp. I do not want him to touch a major league mound until next season, and here's why. This is his first full season as a starting pitcher, as a pitcher, since God knows when. He's only been a reliever, a part-time reliever at that, with also being a hitter in college. And even last year, when it was his first full season, he spent half the season as a DH and a pitcher. So this is someone that still needs to figure it out. He still needs time to get that arm built up to where he can deal with the pressures of being in the major leagues. And I think he's going to be a phenomenal pitcher here. I think he needs the time, and this is someone you don't rush. Brandon Sproat, on the other hand, I would like to see come up in some fashion, and I think he does. We've seen it in the past where teams in playoff positions decide to call upon these young arms that are starting down there, that are projected to be starters, to relievers. We've seen it with Julio Urias back in, like, I guess that was 2017, I think 2018, whatever it was. Who else? Garrett Crochet has come up to be a reliever, and there's another name Corbin Burns, David Stern's prized possession over in Milwaukee. So
Yeah.
that is something that not only is done fairly frequently in the major leagues, but is something that David Stearns has done himself. So I suspect we will see one of these arms, probably Sproat, up as a reliever later in the season.
So you think Spro is going to
I think
definitely
it's
be up before McLean, regardless
100%.
of the AAA numbers? Okay,
100%.
got it. And that makes sense to me. That would make sense.
Yeah.
I would welcome that. I would welcome that. I was curious to get your 2 cents, and I think I forgot who was in the chat. Let me scroll up here. Was talking
I
about
think it's Lane.
John.
Oh,
No, for Jonah Tong in the Futures game. I think it was Dolo, maybe. Yeah, Jonah Tong pitching at the Futures game from Dolo. Yeah, I just
took
Jonah
him a
Tong
while.
also is he's 1.83 ERA in Double A, and he's on the fast track to Triple A as well. So that's a three-headed monster right there between Sproat, McLean, and Tong. But yeah, we're not going to see. I think Sproat. I would have to agree with you. I would think that if the Mets were going to call up McLean out of desperation, they would have done it already. So the fact that they remained, you know,
He stuck to his guns. He never faltered on that. He said he wasn't going to call
right,
him up for a spot start, and he did not. And
right.
he didn't lie to us. He did not. And it's
Oh, he didn't.
frustrating given the three spot starts. It's a difference. If it's a different situation. If they win the game in Baltimore and they win the series. If they, I guess the other one was in Pittsburgh. The other spot start I'm thinking of. And, if they win that game, or they win a couple more games, we're talking about this less. But the fact that you go out there and you have these quote unquote punt games, it's frustrating. So I
Sucks to
understand
see. I'm sick of it.
I understand the frustration, but it he came. David Stearns came to the season with a plan, and he had 9 starting pitchers here to pitch in case of injury, and all of them got injured. So it's tough. He said he wasn't going to come bring these guys up for spot starts, and I guess it would have been a little more than a spot start with them throwing out 3 in the last 2 weeks. But he never wanted to call these guys up for brief stints. If he was calling them up, they were here to stay or at least get a true look. And they were not able to do that given the circumstances around everything. With how many guys went out, and with us, should be us getting healthy fairly soon. So David Stearns, through all the criticism, he was put into a tough situation that he tried to build a team that would be able to survive it, and the injury bug just kind of caught up to us. So,
Well, even with the depth, I was praising the depth of this team way back when, but I mean, even they've dipped into and then some their depth, and that's what's been frustrating because
blown through it all.
I think it was 3 bullpen games in the span of a week for the Mets this past week or the week before that. And like it's just hard to fathom that when you have a $300+ million team. And I understand the circumstances, but at a certain point, like you have to expect the fans to get restless in watching that, right? I mean, you blew a game where the offense didn't show up, but the bullpen blew the game in game 1, and then you have to watch 3 guys that are journeyman guys and just putting together a bullpen game because there's no one else to pitch, and it's just frustrating. So hopefully in the second half, the Mets are able to shy away from that. I have my reservations about how they're going to build a competent enough 6-man rotation instead of a 5-man rotation to try to mitigate that 6-day opener. But because if you're telling me that you'll have, let's just put it on paper here, Senga, Manaya, without any restrictions we're talking about. So Senga, Manaya, Peterson, I mean, Holmes is going to have to
Montas.
stay in the rotation, Montas, and then you'll have to find a sixth starter. I guess you'll put Montas down to a sixth starter if you go get a guy at the trade deadline. I guess that's a way that you can do it, but that's then you have Clay Holmes as a starter all season long. And there's no guarantees. And this is what Rob has always said too. And I also like agree with that. And I've always agreed with it is that Clay Holmes testing him out as a starter in the first half is great. But like, what confidence level do you have with Clay Holmes moving forward into the month of August, September, into playoff baseball time as a competent guy that can get you 5 or 6 competitive innings when he hasn't done that in maybe ever? So I don't know. That's where I'm kind of like, huh. That's where I'm like, maybe Sproat could make a difference, but that's also just asking too much of a guy that's a prospect and doesn't have any major league service time at this point.
I was just doing some math. The Mets won't really have to go into a six-man rotation. They have enough. They don't have a long enough stretch where they actually will have to. I think they'll be able to manipulate enough to get Kodai to put Kodai Senga in a situation where he will be able to get those extra days off without needing to go to a six-man rotation. Because from what I could see, we don't have anything longer than 7 or 8 games in a row, at least until the end of August. So just over here trying to count and trying to figure out if there was 31 days in July or 30. So there are 31.
31, yeah.
Yeah. I think our longest stretch is at the end of August into September. We do have a
Okay.
decently long stretch, so we'll see there. But I think September 1st, we do expand the rosters to 28 players. We get an extra pitcher and batter. So it might be something we can avoid going to the six-man rotation. If
I think
it's
Sprout
one,
would be a perfect September call up.
perfect.
I think
Perfect.
that'd be perfect. If they can get to that point without needing his services beforehand, I think that he'd be the perfect September call up to get his feet wet in the major leagues and just go from there. And not even on a starter basis, but out of the bullpen, maybe long relief like Blade Tidwell has served and just getting him that experience. I think that'd be perfect. So hopefully the Mets can get to that point, and that's what we're talking about come September. So
100%.
these are the updated NL East standings. The Phillies did lose yesterday. The Mets won. So the Mets move up to a half game back behind the Phillies. And again, when I said it was May, late May, I wasn't really standings watching, even though the Mets were up, at the forefront
5
of the
games.
division at that point. And things happened. 3-week stretch, rough stretch happened, and the Mets are finding themselves behind the Phillies. They still do hold a wild card spot, which is the good news. But this division is neck and neck, and it's not really close because the Marlins are in third place. The Braves, the lowly Braves. Oh, the Braves. They're going to be sellers at the deadline. They have to be sellers at the deadline. That roster's not making a run. I'm sorry. That roster's not making a run,
No
and they have
chance.
way too many injuries. They're 12 and a half games back, 41-52. It's been a really disappointing season down there in Atlanta. And the Washington Nationals, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Nationals from the GM level, from the front office level. They just cleaned house. And I think I was listening
That might be
to
a team selling some young pieces. They might be selling some Mackenzie
I
Gortat.
heard I heard Rosenthal talking about that they don't know if they're gonna have the structures to
They
support
have
the
a
young
terrible
guys like
farm.
Gore, Abrams, and Wood.
No.
I mean, if they can't move Wood, and I mean that
Can't
guy's
move wood. You can afford.
no.
I'd almost say it's. I'd almost say you'd probably be a little more comfortable moving Abrams, but he's been so good. It's tough. They're in a tough position where there's no light at the end of that tunnel. Their farm system is so barren. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I
Hey,
guess
listen,
you keep wood, and then whatever happens, happens.
if they want to hand us over Kyle Finnegan for the bullpen, I'm down for that.
I'll take it. I mean, he was someone that I know you wanted last season too, right?
I didn't want him last season. He had a little bit of a below average season to
Yeah.
his standards last season in Nationals uniform. I was interested in kicking the tires on him as a free agent before he went back on a 1-year deal to the Nationals, but he's having a hell of a season, rejuvenated.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
been
he's
great.
pitching to a 2 point something ERA. If you missed the video, I released it yesterday talking about Kyle Finnegan. I don't think people talk about Kyle Finnegan enough. So I'm definitely interested in him, and he's an expiring deal, so he'll be a free agent next season. No harm, no foul. I think that he's a guy that could basically take the role of a Ryan Stanek. He could
Yeah.
be everything that this Mets team wanted Ryan Stanek to be. And even if you go get Kyle Finnegan, you could also still go get one more bullpen arm. It doesn't have to stop at Kyle Finnegan. So, and I don't think it would cost that much either because the Nationals know what it is. And this is a team in the Nationals that I know in division trades are always tough, but they dealt
We've worked with them.
Jesse Winker last year to the Mets. They don't care about that. Kyle Finnegan's not going to be lighting them up, for years to come. This guy's already, what, 32, 33, whatever. And I don't even think the Mets would be re-signing him unless he just has a spectacular run in the
Yeah.
second half. So, yeah, I don't think that is a far-fetched. And he is a guy that I talked about last season and also in the offseason. So, last point that I want to make here, I forgot what radio host it was or whoever was talking about it, some podcaster. What do you make of this Mets home versus road record? It's
Oh,
this
it was
light
what's
years
his
different.
name? He's in from Philly. He actually used to be the
Yeah, of course he's from Philly. I
no,
didn't
he
even
used to
bother to
be one of the head producers at WFAN. I mean, he used to oversee all of their yeah. I forget his name, Spike
make sense.
something,
That makes
Spike
sense.
something.
Spike
But
something, I think, yeah.
he's just stirring shit. I mean, that's what happened once he came over to WFD, and that's when it turned into more of this, tongue in cheek type of sports talk radio as opposed to like the true facts. And he lost his job or left New York and moved back to Philly and has taken over their afternoon drive show and is just bringing that energy there. So he's just stirring the shit and. Whatever. I mean, this is a team that, their road record, you know why it's so bad? I mean, they lost 3 in Atlanta, they lost 2 in Philly, and then they lost 3 in Pittsburgh. I mean, you
Yeah.
lose 8 out of 9 games at the end of June. I mean, you're gonna have a bad road record. They were in the middle of an awful stretch of baseball, and yeah, of course their road record's gonna look much worse.
Well,
And
this guy Spike went into the nitty gritty of like all the historical differences. Then he was talking about the ballparks and how I think the Twins and the Rockies were
yeah,
the only teams in history to have such a discrepancy between home and road records. And he was bringing up the ballparks. And it was just a lot of like, just manipulating the data and just kind of just like trying to tell a story. I'm like, this is not authentic. This is not genuine. This is
no,
fake. So,
it's exactly. Plus, it's not even the
so
end of the season. We'll see where we're at. If they finish with a 500 or above 500 road record, come the end of the season, this is a nothing burger of a story. This is also a team
yeah,
last year that was one of the best road teams in all of baseball. I'm pretty sure
correct.
they were above 500 on the road last year, and I'm pretty sure for the first half of the season they had a
They
better
were
road
better on
record.
the road. Yeah.
So, and this team's not that much different. There's
Right.
Soto, and that's about it on offense. So it's a nothing burger. It's there for clicks. It's there to get at us Mets fans, or at least the Mets fans that want to listen to it and let it get under their skin. But it means
Oh, and
nothing
there's plenty of
from a
Mets fans
nobody.
that will listen to that
Oh
garbage for
yeah,
sure.
oh yeah. That's a nothing from a nobody. Just a
Yeah,
generational hater.
I agree. I agree. Well, that's gonna do it for us on this stream here. We appreciate you all joining. Pre-game show at 2:30. I'm not sure if you're available for that. I don't think Rob's actually available
No,
for
no.
that. So yeah, I'll see if I can muster something up here for the pregame. I'll probably go live for like 20 minutes or something like that. But let's go Mets. This is a good
Let's go
stream.
Mets.
We talked about everything. We talked about the game yesterday. We talked about trades, potential impactful moves within the organization, right? From the
Yeah.
prospect perspective. And we talked about the standings here. The Mets are right in the thick of things. I mean, how long have we been talking about this team, going through that brutal stretch? And here they are. I mean, right there. They're just right there and they just stick around. And that's just resiliency. And that's the aspect that I am proud of this team. It's just
Yeah.
being resilient and just finding a way to try to get out of that rut and just get to the All-Star break and try to recoup from there. So, Zach, final thoughts here before we sign out.
Just give us something on offense today. Let's not wait till the 7th and 8th inning, please. Please,
Exactly.
I don't want to be ready to throw a remote through a TV. This today. I would like some consistent run production. If we lose because the pitching falls apart, at least the offense can do something to keep me engaged for majority of the game. I mean, the last 3 games, actually, last 4 games, I've been not engaged until the late innings, if at all. So please, please do something. We know you can. You did it last night. You did it in the first game in Baltimore. You did it against the Brewers and the Yankees. Let's do it here against the Royals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Hopefully the offense continues its ways in terms of the run production, but a little bit earlier, please don't have us snoozing. Don't have us, making cardiologist appointments, like Zach said early at the top of the stream here, because we want to see the offense. We want to get these pitchers breathing room, right? Frankie
Exactly.
Montas is on the mound. He's going to give up some runs. I can guarantee it. He did it against the Yankees, but guess what? He won the ball game because the Mets offense gave him run support. Do the same thing today. Come out swinging, and we'll do the pregame show. I'll do the pregame show at 2:30. It's not going to be anything too extravagant. It'll be like a 20-minute stream, pitching matchup, all that fun stuff. We'll talk about the lineup, and then we'll go from there. As always, appreciate everyone being here engaged on the stream. Appreciate you, Zach, for joining. Hit the thumbs up
Thank
buttons.
you, CP.
Please subscribe to the channel as well. And yeah, we'll see you in a little bit. Let's go Mets. Game time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's go Mets. Peace.
Let's go Mets.